I'm just going to kind of give a quick overview on where we stand with the peanut cultivar situation going into this year. Georgia 6G, Georgia Greener, Georgia 7W, Florida 7, and Tifgard. There's also some new releases. You will hear from the breeders today, and I'm not going to steal any of their thunder. I'll just mention these by name here. From the University of Georgia, Georgia 9B and Georgia 10T, and from the University of Florida, Flow Run 107. There's also, and Dr. Tillman will probably address this afternoon, they've got a release about ready to go right now, known under the number UF 10302, and they'll tell you more about that one this afternoon. Don't know if it's officially released at this point in time right now. Now, where do we stand on the seed supply? This pie chart shows the percent acreage that was planted last year to produce the seed supply for this year. It was in the southeast, there was a little over 100,000 acres that was planted just to produce foundation, registered, and certified seed. And no surprise, this big green slice of the pie, 73% is Georgia 6G. So that means 73% of that 100,000 plus acres was dedicated to Georgia 6G. Now the majority of that acreage obviously was in Georgia, about 96,000 acres in Georgia alone, a little over 96,000. All of this overseen by the Georgia Crop Improvement Association. They have their display out here on the exhibit floor. You may want to go by and talk with them. They'll explain in detail about how they manage that seed certification program. And then you'll notice that the Georgia 7W, Georgia Greener, Florida 7 Tifgard, right in here, all about 5 to 7%. Pretty equal distribution of those as far as seed acreage. And then the release that's got the most seed available, 2% of the acres last year was in this new Georgia 9B, and less than 1% in the others I listed, like Georgia 10T and Flow Run 107. It's a process, and it'll be explained later today, and how it takes time to get and build up that level. But this gives you an idea that 73% of the acres last year was dedicated to Georgia 6G. Therefore, the majority of the seed that's going to be available to you will be in that cultivar. Everybody's interested in yield data, grade data. I'm just going to show you the Georgia statewide variety testing program data. This is managed by the University of Georgia's Crop and Soil Sciences Department. We have 3 test locations in the state for both irrigated and non-irrigated. There's Tifton, Plains, and Midville, and this column over here is the average over those 3 locations. I've got these listed in order from top to bottom in regards to average yield. But in the other columns I have highlighted in red the cultivar that did the best under the irrigated trial. For example, at Tifton, Flow Run 107 had the highest average yield. At Plains, Georgia 6G, and at Plains you see there, at Midville you see Georgia 7W. So we see these cultivars, depending on location, performing a little differently, but they're, again, our top cultivars there. When you look at the average yields over there, you can see that they fall in there pretty close together. What I tell growers, and if you've been, we've just started our county production meetings in the state of Georgia. We've only had 2. Those were on Tuesday. We've got 47, 48 more to go. So there's plenty of opportunity for you to come to one of our University of Georgia county peanut production meetings and get with your local county extension agent about that. And we'll be talking more in detail about some of this data as well. But what I say in those meetings is this: we've got some very, very good cultivars to select from. Our breeders have done an outstanding job. Now, non-irrigated, I'm showing the Tifton and the Plains data. The data from Midville is not being published this year. That was a decision that Don Day, the coordinator of the program, in consultation with several of us, whereas you see here non-irrigated yields looking real good at the Tifton site and even at the Plains site, pretty good. Midville would have been showing 200 pounds versus 100 pounds. So that certainly does not give you any beneficial information when the yields are that bad. And many of you know growers that had 0 yield or very low yields in one field, and down the road 2 miles somebody might have made 4,000, 4,500, 5,000 non-irrigated yields. That's how spotty it was last year. But this gives you an idea about how these cultivars perform on the standpoint of non-irrigated production systems. Now, I will tell you this, one thing that I've been really thrilled about, and that is the performance of these large seeded runner cultivars under non-irrigated conditions. If you were here 3 or 4 years ago, you'd have heard me say, well, we don't know how these large seeded runner cultivars are going to perform under non-irrigated conditions. Georgia Green may still be the best option. It's really exciting to know that the genetics we have will work under both irrigated and non-irrigated conditions. Just a few slides from some on-farm trials that we conducted. These were all replicated. This was over in Effingham County. In fact, this field site was within a mile or two of the Savannah River over there in the very northern end of Effingham County, right on the Screven County line. Grower and the county agent there worked with us. You see here the yields: Florida 7, Georgia 6G, Georgia 7W. Those plots were 12 rows wide, 1,300 feet long, replicated 4 times. Good trial over there. I was in that field on September 1st, and I was shaking my head thinking we won't get a thing out of it, but he got some timely rains and actually did very well for non-irrigated conditions. In Berrien County, we've had great success working with the McMillans over there, working through our county agent there. This is the yield from the irrigated trial we had. The bars are actually the yields, and here are your yields over here, outstanding yields. You see here, and here's the cultivars listed across the bottom. The number above each is the percent TSMK from the grade samples that were pulled. But again, you see some really outstanding yields from these cultivars, and I'm really excited about what we have available. Then we had a non-irrigated trial just literally a few miles down the road, the same farmer, non-irrigated, the same setup. Here's your yields, the cultivars, your percent TSMK for these cultivars, and you can see how they stack up one against the other. So there's a lot of data out there. The University of Georgia statewide variety testing data is available online. Get with your local county agent. It's at www.swvt for statewide variety testing.uga.edu. Last year, this past year's data is there, all the way back, I think probably 10 plus years of data if you want to compare, particularly over the last 4 or 5 years, how these cultivars stack up. And I would strongly encourage you, before selecting a cultivar, make sure you know how it's performed over the last several years. Now, seed quality situation, it's a little bit early. They really don't start generating a lot of numbers from the Georgia Department of Ag Seed Lab until enough samples have come through, and they don't really start running a lot of samples till after the 1st of January, so they're in the early stages. But the seed quality range from poor to good, but we just don't have enough in right now. A high percentage based on the fact there were over 100,000 acres planted in the southeast and over 96,000 in Georgia, and if the quality is good, we do not expect there to be a seed shortage, even with the anticipation of increased acreage. We could increase acres 20 to 30%, and we should have an ample seed supply for this coming year. Concerns have been about the potential of some cultivars having slightly lower germinations. Last year, a lot of growers were concerned because Georgia Greener had some lower germinations. We did a trial at one location, 2 different planting dates. We compared some foundation seed at 97% germ versus registered seed at 85% germination. This was an April 26th planting date. This was a May 17th planting date. Same seed, just planted 3 weeks different. And we had replicated trials, 7 replications on this trial that were all irrigated, 8 replications at this planting date. And we did stand counts at 10, 20, 30 days after planting and at harvest. And then we looked at the yield and the grade. What I want you to see is that at 10, 20, and 30 days after planting, we were running about twice as many plants on the foundation seed as registered seed. And even at harvest, where we counted, we were running more plants than registered. But look at the yields. Actually, registered out-yielded them somewhat. The peanut plant has an amazing capability, even under fewer plants. It's got an amazing ability to compensate. So 85 germinating seed was not an issue. And if you look at the later planting date, it was a dead heat in the yield. But the same thing, more plants early on. But once you got to that final plant stand, you were okay. So my recommendation to you is that any of that seed that comes through the seed certification program, and if it's germinating at least in the mid-80s and above, it's fine, it's okay. It comes down to your management, how you handle it, and weed control, disease control, insect control, fertility, harvest timing. Do everything else right, and you will be okay. Supply situation. Last year in the 4 southeastern states, we planted 815,000 acres. There's talk that we could possibly reach 1 million acres in the 4 states, maybe a 20 to 25% increase. Last year there was just over 100,000 acres planted for seed production. Assuming a 4,000 pound yield, which is probably kind of low for that seed acreage, and a 50% shell out, we would have approximately 200 million seed, and at about 140 pounds per acre planted. That's using these larger seeded cultivars at 6 seed per foot a row. We would only need 140 million pounds of seed. Seed supply is not going to be an issue. Not going to be an issue, even with the increase in acreage.